everybody, welcome back to Fleet Yards. Yeah, it's Fleet Yards, not Trekyards. We fooled you. Or did we?
No, we didn't.
Anyway, as you guys know, Fleet Yards, we look at other ships from the sci-fi universe, not Star Trek related, all the other sci-fi franchises. And today we're actually doing a follow-up episode. The original episode we did was November 2016. And Samuel, what are we looking at today that they might remember us doing 3 years ago?
Yes, well, as you guys know, Fleet Yards is our spin-off show, but we're now moving it to Saturdays to try and get you a bit of variety, bit of fun, and we always like to do high-quality stuff. So this is the Stargate Ancient class, or Ancient Warship, the Aurora class. Here is a render of it from the show. Look how pretty it is. Now, if you recall the episode that we did in November 2016, we used a fan model, 'cause that was early in our Fleet Yards days, and that was more about showing Stuart what's it like, what details has it got, you know, sort of general, hey, let's embrace and enjoy this ship. You know, we could use stills from the show, but they never quite give it many beauties. I tried to do a few more things there. But since then, if you want to cut now to the next picture, Stuart, that is the fan 3D model, and I think you'll agree, Stuart, quite well detailed. It is detailed. But if you click to the next picture, that's the actual 3D model. Somewhat more detailed, Stuart. I think you'd agree.
A little bit.
So this is the original model from the show, although, as we always caveat in this, we got a version of it from the show. It was one of the damaged versions, and we had to sort of rebuild, bring it back up, and there was colour stuff done, and this is actually my custom version of it to try and get the colours exactly right. And if you want to scroll back to number 1, and then back to number 2, you can see it's quite different. But I'm quite proud of how this one looks, and a good team effort to get this one ready, including Barry Chapman, Team Trekyards, who did a full 3D bridge. So it's quite a special version of the model. And we just want to redo the episode, look at it properly, look at the internal scale from the 3D model, and see where it comes out. But now, Stuart, first, do you actually remember filming the episode and anything that you said in that 2 years ago episode?
I have no idea.
Okay, then for basically a fresh reaction, Stuart, what do you think of Picture 2, the real 3D model? What do you think of the design from this?
It's actually a fantastic looking ship. I mean, I think it's cool. I like the texturing, the color. I mean, and it's got cool stuff on it. Like, it's got fins, and it's a cool looking ship. You said it's an ancient ship?
Yes. What does that mean, Sam?
Yeah.
Well, before you go to that, jump back into the picture before the fan version. What do you think between them? Because again, we did our one on that previously. Compare, now you're looking at the real and the fan. Do you prefer it more now? And sort of why?
Yeah, it looks better. The real one obviously looks better. There's just so much more detailing, so much more texture, so much more life to it. Not that the fan one looks bad at all. It looks kind of cool, and actually it's easier to see some of the details like the turrets and stuff. But when you get all of this information, this visual overload with this other one, it's like, wow, and you can really like sit there and look at stuff. It's really cool.
This was the Ancient, or the Lantean warship. Now, the Lanteans were the first ones in our galaxy that sort of seeded life in our galaxy. We call them the Ancients because they are the first, they are the older people of us. It's a weird summary, but I don't want to give too much away in different ways. But this was such an amazing ship to finally see, and we saw it broken once, but it didn't quite give us a vibe. And when we finally saw it, it was like, wow. Because because the Stargates were designed by those Ancients, so you understand that's what they've got, and their DHDs and all their stuff, but it doesn't look like this. And you're asked to design a spaceship, so what on Earth would that look like? And, well, at this point, not on Earth. And
what above Earth?
Yeah. What at Utopia Venetia? No. How do you design something from the most powerful race ever? But for some reason, I think this ship is just gorgeous. I love the shape. I love the colors. I mean, it doesn't speak ancient, but it's just a cool, interesting kick. You know what I mean? It would be silly and hard of me to say what do you think of scale, because there's no scale markers here. And if you cut to the next picture, this is the fan scale, which at the time we disclaimed was literally just what the guy that built the model put it as the scale as. So that's why we did them. We didn't know this real scale. And to clarify, that is the original Enterprise Mirror Darkly, the original X304, the original Enterprise Z, the original Doderidex. It was huge. It's not the correct scale. Stuart, the next picture, that is the default CG scale of the ship. Although it does get a little bit bigger in some scenes. But yeah, a bit more realistic now. bit more whatever. What do you think, Stuart? Tell me any thoughts you're having right now.
I don't know enough about the ship to really comment. Like, I don't know what kind of crew it has or anything like that. But I do appreciate this scale a lot better than the larger scale. Actually, this looks like something out of Battlestar Galactica, if I'm honest. It looks like part of that fleet, but yeah, what do I know?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. And just to clarify, guys, yes, that is the real scale of the X304, the Daedalus. The online scale is wrong, because if you go by the online scale, and I've scaled the original model to that scale, you can't even fit one of its fighters in the hangar, and we know the ship's meant to have 8 fighters in each hangar. This is the correct scale. Believe me, I've backtracked, I've traced it, I've worked it out. This is correct by every means, as are the other ships. But the side view is, again, dumb with the fan one, a bit too big. But the real side, I really packed it with stuff, this one, because I thought, well, let's compare it to other human created things, even though Galactica and the Star Destroyer aren't human. But I thought it was really interesting to put it in perspective with these other big warships of other universes.
Again, changing the view from the top to the side always changes perspective. But again, I think this is great. It's comparable to a Star Destroyer, which is cool, and it's not too overly big. Actually, Babylon 5 is bigger than I expected there, but
because there's also bulky tech. I mean,
yeah,
it's the point. I mean, they still have to have a ring that spins to create gravity. It's not advanced tech,
And let's be honest, it does look like a part of the Battlestar Galactica fleet. It could be.
If it wasn't red, or had less red, yeah. This is the top ship. It's designed to be very, very. They use both disruptors, but also energy weapons, and also drones, which are actual physical armament. And it's got massive warehouses full of drones, because it launches hundreds in one salvo, because it takes hundreds to destroy one ship. But they go through shields, so one salvo you get rid of a ship, one salvo you get rid of a ship. So presumably it has tens of thousands of drones on board. But the next view is a back picture. You can see the 4 big impulse, the 4, but 2 each impulse drives, and the 3 middle bits, which I think are the hyperspace, but it's kind of nebulous to what does what.
I hate to do this, but it looks Battlestar Galactica, especially that pod at the side. It's throwing me. It keeps bringing me back to the original Battlestar Galactica look. So I'm glad it's only on one side. I'm glad it's asymmetrical, because it would have been too similar otherwise. But I think it's fantastic. There's so many awesome shapes here, and the color scheme is very. It's pleasing to the eye. It's not just like a gray brick in space, or what we see that quite often. So this is actually very, very intricately done, and I appreciate that. I think it looks very cool.
It's got a combination of very robust sort of industry feel, because it's big blocky shapes and a ton of small detail, but a lot of ton of detail is literally pipes. So it's got this really big, bulky, but small and techno feel. It's kind of an interesting hybrid, and I love the color scheme. I think it's truly remarkably done. I'm so thankful I was able to keep the texture work as it should be. I just modified the colors and how brown it looks, but I try to color match it. And I do love that pod. I love the asymmetrical. I think it's very classy. Although you can see how, while the ship is gorgeously detailed, you don't always build a ship from every angle, because sometimes you don't see it. If you zoom in to the left side of the pod, there's that raised bit which the bridge is in front of. At the back of it, there's literally just a blank wall. So that was never meant to be seen. It was never sort of added detail there. It's literally just a blank wall, which I think is quite adorable.
Wow. Yeah.
And in the same way, that pod actually isn't open. It's just a blank, detail. It's not a fighter bay. It could be. It could have been, but it was never gone into about being a fighter bay. But the next picture, Stuart, is from the bottom.
This head detail on this thing, I noticed it on the first 2 pictures. It feels similar. Okay, I'm comparing it to something else, and I apologize. It feels similar to the ship we saw in, or maybe it was Phantom Menace. The first ship we see on screen that drops off.
Yes.
It's got that same shape. It's like they stole that shape for that ship. I mean, I usually complain that we always get antennas everywhere. I mean, this has a few, but they look more like guns. Or weapons of some sort. And they look good. They're not cluttered. They're not too close together. There's not too many of them. It's just the right combination. And what are those 4 things on the front? Are those weapons?
I assume those are the short-range communication devices, and the ones in the left pod are the long-range. You don't need big, pointy guns to be guns. I mean, we'll see the turrets in a minute. It's got dedicated turrets, and it's got dedicated drones. You don't need these big, pointy things. What I like about this ship, and obviously using the real assets, which we do often on the show, is seeing it in a new way. And obviously, freeze frame, no motion blur. Like the bottom is radically different to the top. The shapes are different. It has a totally different feel. Like this thing was almost designed like randomly in a sense. Like he just had a feeling, and it was sort of built as they wanted it. I'm sure it was concept sketched, but I can't imagine it was this in depth of all how the the angles are, the shapes are. But I think this ship is a really great example of better than some of its parts. It just comes together for a really good vibe, you know.
Seeing shapes like these really makes me appreciate how much time and effort goes into designing these ships. Like, if I was to design a ship myself, I'd do a simple shape and add a few other simple shapes. But all this little added detail, it just the time and imagination that has to go into that is mind blowing. So,
but the next picture is back to the fan model, and you can see that yes, they did put turrets here, and they had very sort of massive turrets, but it's not quite right, Stuart. So the next picture, that's what the turrets really look like. It's much more subtle, much more lasery, or pulse phasery, I don't know, diddly turrets. And I like how each one is connected by a wire to a little power thing, which I think is a nice little detail.
Yeah, and they look great. I mean, I like the shape of the barrels, much more so than the fan model.
Yeah. No offense.
Well, yeah, absolutely no offense. But yeah, I like the turret idea. It feels very battleship-like. You can definitely tell where the firepower is coming from. So that's cool.
And then in this picture, you can see in the top left, that's the bridge. It existed in the model as just a dome, but I was like, yeah, I want a bridge in there. So Barry, ages ago, built a bridge in there for me. I gave him like just that bit, and he built it in. So that's a 2-story bridge. So that gives you a sense of the scale. Although the stories are quite large, like it's space plus headroom, but that's kind of like, I don't know if you can see, if you zoom in, you can see there's chairs and there's stuff. But that's the bridge. The next picture though is a still from the show. This is their 3D bridge. They only used in one shot. Which is our one we replicated from. So you can see how small the people are. I mean, it's easily like two people worth of height for the first floor, and the second floor is like ladders on the side, and there's an outer room of consoles and an inner room of consoles. Like, it's a pretty big open space. This is why when people say the Stargate stuff is much smaller than you think, it's like, look at this bridge. That dome is already like 4 floors because they like open space. I mean, if that's 4 decks of practical space, I mean, then how big is the ship? You know what I mean? And then here is the next one. Here's our bridge. Looks about the same, doesn't it, Stuart?
Yeah, very well done. That's cool.
But the next picture is a really great reverse shot from inside the bridge. You can see how big it is. It's not a small ship. They love their big open, really open spaces. Just walking across the bridge is going to be a real, really going to suck.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than I thought, actually, from the outside.
Yep.
Look at all the consoles they got, too.
Mm-hmm. But this is why, like I said, it's a big ship. And I love the idea of this just big cathedral-like open space. They're that advanced, they're that powerful. Because this thing has a very, very powerful shield. It's one of its biggest things. So, when you got shields, that's why it's okay to have glass. If your shields go down, a rock can just smash through any part of your ship. This is no more strong or less strong, But the next picture is the last picture. The first picture is that top shot. So yeah, I absolutely love this ship. Real privilege to get it, and the year it took to sort of bring it back up to snuff. Thanks to the whole team that helped sort of put it back together a little bit. And then I'm really proud of my sort of final version that made it look, I think, pretty damn close to the screen version with its colours and sort of that spec and stuff. I just had a good night doing it. Your final thoughts, Stuart, on our official follow-up, now with the real model?
Well, I don't remember what I said about the first one in our original one, but I think this is actually great. I think it's a fantastic looking ship. And again, I'm comparing it to other things I know, so I can see other things in it. I need to actually sit down and watch Stargate and actually get a feel for it. But I think it's great. The detailing and texture work is fantastic. I love the color. And it just looks like a mean machine, so I think it's fantastic. It gets a thumbs up from Captain Foley because I like it.
You can see why I have a soft spot for it in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, tell us what you think of this ship down below, and should Captain Foley watch Stargate? Everybody says yes, and eventually I will. But anyway, so put your comments down below. We look forward to reading them. As always, guys, click like, click subscribe, click the notification icon so you get notified when we do these Fleet Yards. And if you're a fan of Star Trek, go check out our Trekyards as well.
And it is worth saying there that, whilst it's a Fleet Yard episode, we obviously compared it to Trek ships in the scale. So there's always Trek on this channel. We can't not.
It's true. That's very true. We're Trek minded. So yeah, make sure you do all of the above things, like, subscribe, all that, and come back and see us for more. And
of course, during our weekly lives, we look at episode reviews, we look at breaking news when it happens. Like, if there's massive Picard news, massive Discovery news, it'll be on the channel very, very soon, so check in for that. And of course, support us on Patreon, as I think you've probably said. Really, really helpful. PayPal is really good. Use the links down below for the Eagle Moss link. If you like ships from any of the many universes, because they do several, including the Orville line, which is either out if you watch this in the future or coming out if you're watching in the present. You can get that when that comes out as well. So yeah, support us by supporting them, and tune in for the next episode.
That's right. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Collins.
Bye, guys.